What if I told you that a single TV show could boost children's book sales by like 800%?
Wow, that's a huge number.
It really is. And it speaks to the power of one man, LeVar Burton, and his dedication to storytelling.
Oh yes, LeVar Burton. Most people probably know him as Geordi LaForge from Star Trek or as the host of Reading Rainbow.
Yes, exactly. But today, we're going way beyond the starship and the rainbow. We're pedantically peering into LeVar Burton's world. We really want to uncover just how much he has shaped the way we think about things like literacy and diversity and the power of storytelling.
And we've got some really great sources for this. We've got his website and information from the National Endowment for the Humanities and some really cool insights into the legacy of Reading Rainbow.
Oh, this is going to be good. So, let's just start right at the beginning. Picture this. It's 1977, and a 19-year-old LeVar Burton lands this role, the role of Kunta Kinte, in Roots, this groundbreaking miniseries. I mean, what a powerful introduction to the world of storytelling, right?
Yes, it's definitely powerful, but I think it's more than that. It's a testament to his understanding, even at such a young age, of how storytelling can bridge divides. Roots told from the perspective of enslaved Negroes. I mean, it really changed the way that America viewed its own history.
Yes, and that commitment to using storytelling to foster empathy and understanding, wouldn't you say that that's been a constant theme throughout his entire career?
Oh, absolutely. It's like it's this thread that you see through everything he does, from Roots to Reading Rainbow, and even to his work today with LeVar Burton Entertainment.
Okay, so let's talk about Reading Rainbow for a minute. I mean, that show was very special for so many children, myself included.
Yes, the impact it had is really incredible to think about. Back in the early 80s, educators, they were really worried about summer learning loss. Basically, children's reading skills would just decline over the summer break.
Right. Reading Rainbow was created to combat that, and it did it in such a joyful and engaging way.
Yes, it really did. And you know what's funny? The producers initially thought LeVar Burton was too big for the show.
Too big? How could LeVar Burton be too big for anything related to reading?
I know, right? They were looking for someone more like Mr. Rogers, someone relatable and gentle. But thankfully, they came to their senses and realized that Burton's energy and enthusiasm were for exactly what the show needed.
Yes, and thank goodness for that. Reading Rainbow wouldn't be the same without him. But it's not just charisma. I mean, Burton's passion for reading runs deep.
Right. His mother was an English teacher, and she instilled in him this love of reading from a very young age. He often talks about how she would read to him, but also, and just as importantly, she would read in front of him, modeling that love of books.
That's so important. It shows how much our early experiences shape our relationship with reading.
Totally. And with Reading Rainbow, Burton took that torch and ran with it. He reached millions of children and really sparked this nationwide love of reading.
And the numbers prove it. Remember that stat about children's book sales increasing by 800%? It wasn't just entertainment. It was like education disguised as pure joy.
Totally. And it became a staple in classrooms all over the country, right? It's shaped an entire generation's relationship with reading. It's amazing to think about the ripple effect of that.
It really is. But there was actually a point where Burton almost left Reading Rainbow to boldly go where no man had gone before, so to speak.
Oh yes, his role as Geordi LaForge on Star Trek: The Next Generation. That must have been a tough decision for him.
Yes, he was actually ready to move on. But then he had this change of heart. He said he felt like there was still work for him to do with Reading Rainbow. Talk about dedication.
Really incredible. He felt such strong responsibility to continue promoting literacy that he juggled both roles. He starred in Star Trek and hosted Reading Rainbow at the same time.
That's amazing. Yes, and they even had fun with it. They incorporated Reading Rainbow into the Star Trek universe. There's an episode filmed on a Star Trek set where Burton talks about how books can help you explore the universe.
Such a clever way to connect those two worlds. It really highlights how intertwined his passions are.
For sure. And while Reading Rainbow might not be on the air anymore, Burton's dedication to storytelling, building community, well, that hasn't wavered one bit. In fact, it's evolved.
Yes, that's what's so fascinating about his journey. His work through LeVar Burton Entertainment goes way beyond children's literacy. He's creating content that champions diversity, that fosters empathy, and maintains integrity, as he says on his website.
I love that. And speaking of his broader impact, In 2023, he received the National Humanities Medal. I mean, that's the highest honor you can get for achievement in the humanities in the US. That really says something about his influence.
Oh, it definitely does. It shows that LeVar Burton's work extends so far beyond just entertainment. I mean, he's a true advocate for education and literacy and human connection.
So we've got this man who finds success very early in his career, with a role that really touches on these racial divides in a profound way. Then he goes on to spearhead this show that significantly impacts literacy rates all across the country. And he did all of that while also starring in one of the most iconic science fiction franchises of all time.
It really is incredible. And throughout it all, he remains committed to using storytelling as a tool for positive change. It makes you wonder, how has he been able to do all of this? What are the driving forces behind his unwavering dedication to storytelling and its power to make a real difference?
Well, that's what we're going to uncover as we continue our pedantic peering into the world of LeVar Burton. So buckle up.
It really is inspiring to see how he's consistently used his platform to advocate for positive change.
Yes, and he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. One of the things I find really impressive is his dedication to amplifying diverse voices and perspectives, especially through his work with LeVar Burton Entertainment.
That's a great point. Yes. And his commitment to diversity, it's not just some recent thing. It's been a core value for him throughout his whole career.
Exactly. I mean, think about Reading Rainbow. He didn't just showcase books with white protagonists. He made a real effort to feature stories from a bunch of different cultures and backgrounds.
Yes, that was groundbreaking back then, and it had a huge impact on children all over the country. It showed them that their stories mattered, that their experiences were worth sharing.
And it helped to create a more inclusive and understanding world, one book at a time.
Exactly. And that commitment to diversity, it even extends to his work today.
Yes, absolutely. One example that comes to mind is his project, This Is My Story, where he shares personal anecdotes and experiences from his own life and the lives of his friends.
You know what's so compelling about that project? It's how it uses storytelling to give context to the Black experience in America. It's not just sharing stories. It's about fostering empathy and promoting real understanding.
Yes, it's about creating this space for dialogue and connection, even across differences. It reminds me of that famous Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie quote, "The single story creates stereotypes, but the many stories humanize."
I love that quote. And LeVar Burton, he's dedicated his whole life to sharing those many stories, to amplifying voices that might not otherwise be heard.
He's like a modern-day griot, passing down wisdom and knowledge through the art of storytelling.
I love that analogy. And it's not just about entertainment, right? It's about education and fostering critical thinking, about empowering people to see the world from these different perspectives.
Yes, it's about using storytelling as a tool for social change, for building a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely. And that's a message that really resonates in today's world, don't you think? I mean, we're constantly bombarded with information, and it's hard to find common ground sometimes. And that's something we could all use a little more of these days.
It's like he's reminding us of the power of empathy, of the importance of listening to each other's stories.
Oh, of course. That's been a defining theme throughout his whole career, right? From Reading Rainbow to all his current projects.
So true. So, we've talked a lot about LeVar Burton's commitment to storytelling and diversity, but there's another aspect of his work that I think we need to talk about. His advocacy for literacy, right? And it goes beyond just encouraging children to read. He's a fierce advocate for access to books and for protecting intellectual freedom.
Yes, that's right. He's been very outspoken about his opposition to book bans and censorship.
And it's not just about protecting books, it's about protecting ideas and perspectives and the right to learn.
Exactly. He understands that when we censor certain stories, we're not just silencing those authors, right? We're depriving ourselves of the opportunity to learn and grow and expand our understanding of the world.
Yes, it's like we're limiting our own imaginations by shutting out different viewpoints.
Precisely. And that's why Burton's advocacy in this area is so important. He's reminding us that all stories deserve to be told, even or maybe especially the ones that make us uncomfortable.
Right? Because sometimes those are the stories we need to hear most, the ones that challenge our assumptions and push us out of our comfort zones and help us to see the world through different eyes.
He gets that. He recognizes that discomfort can be this catalyst for growth and understanding. It's through engaging with those challenging ideas that we can really develop empathy and cultivate compassion and ultimately build a more inclusive and understanding society.
Very well said. So, his advocacy for banned books, it's not just about protecting literature, it's about defending these very principles of free speech and open dialogue. He sees access to information and diverse perspectives as essential for a thriving and equitable society.
Absolutely. And it's a message that really resonates, especially now. I mean, we're seeing this concerning rise in book bans and censorship attempts, and his voice is this powerful reminder of the importance of fighting for intellectual freedom and making sure that all stories have a right to be heard.
It's inspiring, to say the least. It's so easy to get caught up in the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, but LeVar Burton never lost sight of his core values.
No, he didn't. His career is a testament to the fact that you can be successful and still use your platform to advocate for things that matter.
He could have just rested on his laurels, you know.
Yes.
As Geordie LaForge or the host of Reading Rainbow.
Yes.
But he chose to do so much more.
Yes. And in doing so, he's left this indelible mark on the world, right? He's touched so many lives, inspired generations of readers, and championed the power of storytelling to create real and lasting change.
It's a legacy that goes way beyond the screen. His work is a testament to the power of storytelling to change lives.
Yes. It's a reminder that stories can connect us and teach us and inspire us to build a better world. And that's a message that's worth celebrating.
Absolutely. Now, we can't talk about LeVar Burton without talking about Reading Rainbow. I mean, for so many of us, it wasn't just a show. It's like this gateway drug to a lifelong love of reading.
Yes, the impact it had on an entire generation is incredible to think about. What do you think made Reading Rainbow so special?
I think it was a combination of things. You had LeVar Burton and his incredible charisma and genuine passion for reading. He made you feel like you were going on this adventure with him, exploring new worlds through books.
He had this way of making reading seem exciting and fun, not like a chore.
Exactly. And then there were those amazing field trips, the ones that took us behind the scenes at zoos and museums and even space centers.
Those were so cool. They brought the books to life in a way that no other show could. They showed us that learning could be this big adventure.
Yes, and they always tied those adventures back to the books. It made the stories come alive.
It was all about connecting the dots, showing how stories could inform our understanding of the world and how the world could inform the stories, right?
Yes. Like they were saying, reading isn't just sitting still with a book. It's about opening your mind to new possibilities and new experiences, new ways of seeing the world.
And that resonated with so many children watching Reading Rainbow. It wasn't just a TV show, it was a cultural phenomenon.
Absolutely. And it's a phenomenon that continues to this day, right? Even though the show ended in 2006, its legacy lives on. It's still streaming online. People from different generations still cherish it.
It's timeless. And I think one of the reasons it's resonated so much with viewers is because of LeVar Burton's genuine passion for reading, you know.
Oh, for sure. You could see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice, feel it in every single episode. He wasn't just reading words off a page. He was bringing the stories to life.
Yes. He made you believe that reading could transport you to these different worlds and introduce you to all these fascinating characters and teach you these really valuable lessons.
He made reading feel like an adventure, and that's a gift that continues to inspire children and adults alike.
Yes, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And you know what's amazing? Reading Rainbow, it almost didn't happen.
Really? What do you mean?
Well, remember how Burton almost left the show to star in Star Trek: The Next Generation? He was torn between his love for science fiction and his dedication to promoting literacy.
That's right.
Yes.
Man, that must have been a really tough decision.
Oh, yes, it was. But in the end, he decided he couldn't give up Reading Rainbow. He felt this deep sense of responsibility to keep inspiring children to read.
And thank goodness he did. The world would be a much less special place without Reading Rainbow, that's for sure.
I totally agree. But, you know, it's interesting to think about how those two things, science fiction and literacy, seem so different, but they actually complement each other.
How so?
Well, science fiction is all about exploring new worlds and new possibilities, new ways of thinking. And in a way, that's kind of what reading does too, right? It opens our minds to these different perspectives and challenges what we think we know and expands our understanding of the world.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's like LeVar Burton was using both Star Trek and Reading Rainbow to promote a sense of wonder and curiosity about the world, you know?
Exactly. And that's a message that's more relevant than ever these days. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with information, and it's hard to make sense of it all sometimes.
It's like he's reminding us to stay curious and keep exploring and to never stop learning.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not only science fiction and literacy. LeVar Burton has been weaving together all these different passions throughout his whole career. He's shown us that our interests don't have to be separate. They can inform and enrich each other.
Yes, and that's a really powerful message, especially for young people, the ones who are trying to figure out where they fit in the world. I mean, he's such a great role model for pursuing your passions and using your talents to make a difference.
Absolutely. So, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about some of LeVar Burton's more recent work. I mean, the guy just hasn't slowed down.
He's like the Energizer Bunny of storytelling, you know? So what's he been up to?
Well, like we mentioned, he's been very active in creating content that fosters empathy and champions diversity and promotes social justice.
Yes, and he's doing it through all these different mediums, from his podcast to his work with LeVar Burton Entertainment. It's really inspiring to see how he's using his platform to advocate for positive change in the world.
Oh, it really is. His podcast especially is this really fascinating exploration of all things storytelling. He interviews this really diverse range of guests like authors and actors and educators and activists. All of them have something really interesting to say about the power of storytelling.
That sounds like a must-listen for anyone who's interested in the art of storytelling.
It definitely is. He also uses his podcast to share personal anecdotes and thoughts on what's happening in the world and insights into his own creative process.
It's like getting this glimpse into the mind of a master storyteller, right?
Exactly. And it's clear from his podcast that his passion for storytelling is as strong as ever. It's amazing to see how he keeps finding these new ways to connect with people and to inspire them with his words. He really is a master of his craft.
He really is. And that, my friend, is the true mark of a legendary storyteller.
Well said, but I think we've only scratched the surface of LeVar Burton's incredible journey.
Yes, you're right. There's so much more to explore. What do you think is the most important thing people should take away from everything we've talked about so far?
That's a great question. I think the most important lesson is that each of us, we have the power to make a difference in the world through the stories we tell.
I love that.
Whether it's sharing our own experiences, or amplifying the voices of others, or using storytelling to fight for positive change, we all have a role to play.
LeVar Burton's life. It's a testament to how powerful storytelling can be. He's a true inspiration.
Absolutely. He's shown us that stories can connect us and inspire us and empower us to create a better world.
And that's a message that deserves to be spread far and wide.
I couldn't agree more. Now, before we wrap up this pedantic peering, I have a question for you.
Yes, I'm all ears.
What do you think is the most significant way that LeVar Burton has impacted the world? What's his most lasting legacy?
That's a really tough question. His work has touched on so many important areas, but if I had to choose one thing, I think it's his unwavering belief in the power of storytelling to create positive change in the world.
I love that. He's shown us that stories can be so much more than just entertainment. They can be tools for education and empathy and social justice.
He has inspired so many others to use their voices to make a real difference.
He's created this ripple effect of storytelling that just keeps spreading throughout the world.
And that's a legacy that will continue to inspire future generations.
Absolutely.
As we keep peering deeper into LeVar Burton's world, it really hits me that his impact, it goes way beyond his own accomplishments. It's about the ripple effect that he's created, like inspiring other people to embrace the power of storytelling.
That's a great point. Yes. It's like his influence is like throwing a rock in a pond, the ripples. They spread out and they touch lives and create change in ways we can't even imagine.
Exactly. Think about all the teachers who use Reading Rainbow in their classrooms, right? Or the parents who read to their children because of him. I mean, that's a legacy that keeps multiplying.
And it's not only about literacy either. His advocacy for diversity, his fight against censorship. These are all actions that inspire other people to stand up and make their voices heard.
He's created a movement, right? A movement of people who believe in the power of stories to connect us and educate us, and make us want to be better.
And that movement is more important than ever, I think. I mean, we're facing so many challenges like division and inequality and all this misinformation. And storytelling, it can be this really powerful tool to help deal with these issues.
For sure. I mean, it can help us bridge divides and build empathy, and maybe even find some common ground.
Absolutely. And LeVar Burton has shown us how to do that. I mean, he's not just a master storyteller, he's a master communicator. He knows how to connect with people on an emotional level and inspire them to take action.
That's such an important skill, especially today.
Yes.
I mean, it's not enough to just have the right message. You need to be able to communicate in a way that really resonates with people.
Yes. And LeVar Burton, he does that so well. He combines passion and intelligence and even humor to create this really compelling and persuasive voice. He's a role model for anyone who wants to use their voice to make a difference in the world.
You know, one of the most amazing things about him, I think, is his ability to connect with people across generations.
Yes.
Children who grew up watching Reading Rainbow, they're adults now.
Yes.
And they're passing on that love of reading to their own children.
And those children will probably grow up to pass it on to their children, and so on, right? It's this beautiful cycle of literacy and imagination that he started.
And it shows you the power of a good story, right? A good story can stay with you, shaping your values and what you believe and how you see the world.
And LeVar Burton has given us so many good stories, from Roots to Star Trek to Reading Rainbow. He's left a mark on our culture that can't be erased.
He's a true icon, you know, and I think his legacy, it's only going to keep growing as new generations discover his work.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. He's timeless, a champion for literacy, a voice for diversity, and a true believer in the power of storytelling to make the world a better place.
So as we wrap up our pedantic peering into the world of LeVar Burton, what's the one thing you hope our audience will take away from this conversation?
I hope they'll be inspired by LeVar Burton to use the power of storytelling in their own lives, whether it's reading to their children, or sharing their own stories, or fighting for the things they believe in. I hope they'll see that they can make a difference too.
That's really well said. And I hope they'll be encouraged to seek out and engage with different stories and perspectives. I mean, LeVar Burton has shown us that the world is a much richer and more vibrant place when we open ourselves up to different voices and experiences.
It's been so great exploring his life and work with you.
I feel the same way. And to our audience, thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep reading, keep learning, and never stop believing in the power of stories.